Hey everybody, welcome to On Grade. This is Brandon Wineland. I'm your host of episode number 4. Devin is not in studio tonight. His daughter is having her birthday, so he is at a birthday party. And I'm sorry we didn't put an episode out last week. I was slammed. Me and Devin were both on that big job in Fort Worth. And so I got my buddy here, Bryan Furnace. Most of y'all know him. He's he owns the Diesel and Iron YouTube channel. He's also the host on that show. And he's a podcast host with the Sweat and Grime podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts. And he's also the host of The Dirt. So welcome to the show, Bryan. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. You're looking sharp as always.
Thank you. You are as well. You got that sexy blue lighting going and everything, like the contrast. I can tell you as an AV guy, like your setup is very sexy. I'm digging it.
Well, I appreciate it. Yours is very sexy as well, sir.
Thank you.
I'm digging the modern era, like paneling behind you.
Man, this ought to be the fluffer episode. Let's just go at it. So how you doing?
I'm good, man. And thank God it's Friday. I'm going to say that this week was an absolute, I don't know what it was. I don't, you ever have that time when you drive home from work and the radio's off and it's just like, you're just driving and you're just like,
and you don't even realize it till you're 3/4 of the way home. And you're like, fuck, it's really quiet.
And then your old lady calls you like 3 times. Are you fucking coming home? Oh, I'm already halfway home. Why didn't you fucking call me? So,
because my brain is off, woman. For the first time today, my brain is off.
I don't have someone calling me and yelling at me.
Yeah. 100%. When I was working at Dan's, that's our big contractor up here in Michigan. And it was, one of those contractors where you're working 16 hours a day, it's 7 days a week. And so many of those days you're coming home and you're just like, you're just a shell. Like there's nothing behind the scenes going on. You're just the shell.
Yep. I tell everybody after about 3 o'clock, it's like shoulders down, dude. That's it. There's nothing anymore. It's just
you're spent. Yep.
So Bryan, I know your story, but a lot of our listeners might not. So why don't you fill us in on your story, my friend? You got a pretty cool background.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you're wanting to go way, way back.
Like let's go back to the homeland, greatest state in America.
Okay. So I come from the banking industry, believe it or not. And I had a dad that was in bank consulting. So fresh out of high school, I thought I was going to go conquer the world and make millions being a bank consultant. So I went into college and took the scenic route and got a 6-year degree in business marketing and decided I was going to go be a banker and discovered very quickly that banking sucks balls and was absolutely miserable in that space. And so there I kind of had some life choices ahead of me. So I kind of thought about what I wanted to do. And I've always enjoyed working with my hands. So I went and got a job with a landscape crew and absolutely loved it. But the flip side of that was I've always been into the big toys and landscapers don't play with the big toys. So did landscaping for a while, kind of had life throw some curveballs at me and decided I was going to move to Texas and start my own company. And I was going to do landscaping in Texas. And competition is fierce. We'll just put it that way down in Texas in the landscaping world. And so there were no margins there. So I dabbled with window cleaning, found out that was actually a pretty lucrative business, but unfortunately I was pretty well out of money at that point. So I couldn't get it off the ground. So I dabbled around, went and did a handful of things, worked at Home Depot for a while, did some other things. And then ultimately told my wife one night, like, I just want to go get into construction. Like, I've been batting around this idea for years and years and years. And like, I want to go do construction. And so to kind of back up on the college side of it, I came out of college in 2008 and that was right when the recession hit, the big recession that in my mind kind of flipped the script on how valuable a college education was. Up until that 2008 recession, you could have a college education and you were pretty much guaranteed to get a $50,000 to $60,000 a year job right off the rip. And then you were going to work your way up through the ranks and you were going to have a really lucrative career. And in 2008, all of America's middle management got laid off. And so our generation came out of college and what we were competing with was a bunch of these guys that had 20 years of experience in the industry. And so we were dealing with job requirements that were, you must have 10 plus years of management experience, and they were going to pay you 40 a year. And it's like, how am I supposed to pay back $60,000 in debt doing that? And so all that to say, one of the reasons I hadn't really considered construction up until that point is because, you know, as the old adage goes, that's for the guys who can't hack it in the college world. Why would I go pursue that? There's no money in that world. And really, that totally changed after '08. I couldn't get a job that was going to get me to pay my college loans back. So I ultimately looked into construction and went, holy shit, there actually is a fair amount of money here. And so I had that conversation with my wife. I told her I was going to start at the bottom of the totem pole, make $15 an hour. And my wife is phenomenal. She said, if that's what you want to go do it, and we'll figure it out. And so I did. I went and got a job driving a rock truck and got my feet wet in the construction industry, hit the ground running, didn't know anything about construction. You know, I didn't have the dad or the uncle that was in the industry. And so I just figured it out. And it was a lot of getting yelled and screamed at, as a lot of us are familiar in the trades. And ultimately I worked my way up the food chain, spent 5.5 years with Dan's Excavating, the company I mentioned earlier, doing heavy civil projects. So road work, airports, did pretty much everything with those guys. I kind of worked my way through the ranks there. So I ran everything from paddle wheel scrapers, started there on a concrete breaker. And when I say concrete breaker, I don't mean like an excavator with a pecker. I mean like a freaking drop hammer machine that you walk beside. Walk beside that fucker for 2 years. I would not recommend it. Miserable. So worked my way through that, ended up in a loader for a pipe crew, ran that for 2.5 years, did really well at it. And then kids came along and things changed. And so I decided I wanted to stay around the industry, but I didn't want to work the crazy hours. And so I went and sold construction equipment for a case dealership for 2.5 years. And then when COVID hit, they laid me off. And I had this YouTube channel floating around that wasn't named yet. And so I decided to flip that over and turn it into a teaching channel. And that's kind of how Diesel and Iron started. And then it's just been this snowball. And I always tell people the way it's been since COVID for me has been blindly feeling my way through a tunnel. I just kind of bump into a wall and I'm like, oh, we'll go this way now. Bump into a wall. Oh, we'll go this way now. And so out of that, I've become the host of The Dirt on YouTube for Randall Riley. And then we started the Sweat and Grime podcast, and that's how we got here today.
So you have a pretty freaking cool story. And I never told you this actually, and I'm telling you this now live on the air. You and I knew so many people that worked at Ranger together, and that's what's crazy. Like, I know you started at Ranger, and
I did.
I was down there.
I totally forgot that I even told you that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was working down in Buda with Senecola a few years ago. Yep. And it was before we had met, but I knew your show. And I was working down there on some highway work in Buda, and the Ranger was doing our Massex for us because our stuff was all tied up. So they were doing the Massex work, and I was the foreman on the grading foreman. And I was talking to one of the guys, and he's like, watching your show. And I was like, you know, Bryan? He's like, yeah, he used to work for me. And I was like, what?
No shit.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the guy's name.
Do you remember?
I can't remember his name, but he was one of the foremans from Ranger, and he was telling me about you running
originally from Vegas.
Yeah, he was. I can't remember.
I know exactly who it is, and I cannot remember his name. I've got his number in my phone, actually. Believe it or not.
Yeah. he was running. He was running a. He was telling me you ran a rock truck for him, and then you ran something else for him. I can't remember what he was saying, but so for the listeners that don't understand Bryan's story, Bryan worked for one of the largest excavation companies in the state of Texas at one point in time. And to start at a company like that, it makes a lot of guys have a bad taste in their mouth about the industry, because there you are literally a number. And when you go to a small company like I have, and like where you work now, it's like, this is so much better. You don't have the corporate mentality bullshit. It's just, hey, let's go out here, get this job done. Let's get on with it. Like when you're at that level, dude, they've got, I don't know, you know how to explain it. It's just, there's so much political bullshit that it's just, if you don't know the right person, you're not going to move up. That's just the way it is over there.
Yeah, and everything is 100% about production. I mean, there is you kind of nailed it. You are a number because that's all anyone looks at is spreadsheets and Excel sheets and graphs on how much dirt was moved.
Mm-hmm.
And if number 28 wasn't cutting it, number 28 is going to get his ass chewed, and if that doesn't work, number 28 ain't going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah, I really enjoyed working over there on the big side. I did. I worked for two of the second and third largest behind Ranger, and great companies, great culture. I knew the owners, but it's because I've been around it most of my life. But it's still an aspect of, eh, you know, I went and worked for some smaller guys after those guys, and I was like, this is the level. If I ever do start my own company, it's the biggest I want to get. Maybe 30, 40 guys, and know everybody's name, know their wife's
Yeah.
name, know where they live, know their birthday. Like that's what I want. I don't want to get any bigger than that, man. It's just at that point it becomes a monster, anyways.
It really is. It's one of those things where the beast has to eat. I mean, once you get that big, you are constantly chumming the waters for work, and then you're constantly on to the next project, and you're constantly looking at getting your efficiencies up so that because at that level, I think a lot of people, especially new people to the industry, don't realize those companies aren't operating on tremendous margins. I mean, when you're playing at that level, it's about volume of work, it's about quantity of dirt moved at pretty thin margins. And that's why everyone blows a gasket when something goes sideways, is because that very quickly goes from being a very profitable job to now we're paying to do this job.
Yeah, that's the problem with, especially in an area that's saturated with companies like it is here in the Metroplex down in Austin, San Antonio area. There's just so many freaking companies. So everybody's in a fight to the bottom. It's not a fight to, nobody's on the same page about, I was just talking to Pete about this, my estimator today, and I thought maybe you and I could talk about it. It just seems like we need to do something where we go. I know up in Canada, I'm dealing with a contractor out of Canada right now that we're going to do some work for. And they were telling me up there, like everybody runs off a rate book. Like they run off a rate book. Like everybody does. Doesn't matter what territory they're in, where they run off a rate book. And I don't know if it's true I think he said it's in Canada. And I'm assuming the way he said it, I could be wrong. So anybody that's on TikTok that's going to hate on me for this here in about a week.
Oh, I can't wait to see the comments. It's going to be great.
I don't know what he's talking about. Okay,
you I don't idiot. Are you even in the industry?
I don't live in fucking Canada, dude. I'm sorry. All right. Shit. So anyways, they were saying though that they have a rate book, and I don't know if it goes by territory. I don't know if it goes by region. I don't know if it goes by, their territories up there. And so, it's like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the whole country, but every dirt company up there, but see up there, everybody does excavation and utilities. It's not like here, like, how it is in Texas.
It's kind of split out.
Yeah. It's very, very, it's very niche. You're in dirt work, you're a dirt guy. If you're a pipe guy, you're a pipe guy. It's not like up north where you got I know, especially up where you're at, like Illinois, Michigan, most companies do all three.
Yeah.
And there's some down here that do it, but it's the big boys. It's not the, mom and pop companies doing that. So, but, everybody runs on the same rates up there. So everybody's bids are tight. Like they're within 5% of each other. It's not like here where, you and I've talked about it. There's sometimes you got a job, you turn in a bid, and it could be a couple $100,000 job. One guy's like 150 grand lower than everybody else. And you're like, they better throw that bid out. And then these GCs turn it in and they get the job with it. And I'm like,
it's funny that you're talking to me about this, because this is about the fourth conversation I've had in about a 2-week stretch. And I've been talking with multiple contractors, and I will say one thing that's been awesome about doing all of these different platforms I'm associated with is I run across a ton of people in a lot of different walks of life. And it doesn't matter if you're on the mom and pop side of the business, with and Rick and I are a prime example. We've got our dirt company, and we're dealing with the same thing, just at a smaller scale.
Yep.
And then we also go to these public bid lettings, and we go to these things. And like you just said, one of these contractors, fact, especially this year, we just went to this bid letting here about 6 to 8 months ago. And, the economy's starting to dip a little bit. It's an election year. And now all these companies, kind of like we were talking about, they've got to eat. They got to keep their guys fed, because if they don't, well, we ain't got anyone to replace them. So we can't let them go. And so now these companies are just buying work to keep their guys fed. So we go to this bid letting. Everyone else was within probably $5,000 to $7,000. And this other company comes in $60,000 under everyone else. And it was really clear they just wanted to keep their guys fed. And it's like, you just diminished everything in this room.
Yep.
Everybody in the room just went, so we got to drop our pants that low now to get any work.
You are the problem, and they don't realize it. It's like, you are the problem. The bank knows
100%.
roughly. The bank isn't idiots. A lot of people don't realize this. The banks are not idiots. They have a rough idea of what this shit's going to cost.
Mm-hmm.
And so you come in there and they're like, oh, well, we budgeted $1.5 million to do this dirt job, right? Like, just rough numbers, but they roughed it in. And they always add 40-50% for bullshit. They always do.
Sure. They know.
So, yeah. So you got $1.5 million. It might cost you really like 800,000-900,000 to do this job. They're going to put $1.5 million on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some asshole that comes in at fucking 505 or some bullshit. And you're like, you just gave these assholes $1 million fucking bucks for
100%.
What?
Yeah. Yep.
And then they're not going to take you fucking forever to pay you. And it's like, okay, all right. So I give the shirt off my back, and then you're going to drag me out paying me too on top of it. So it's just,
yeah,
I don't know. It's just,
it's a really frustrating situation. And so at that scale, actually, it doesn't really matter the scale. The frustrating thing is when that happens, you have to think about it. We think about it on the dirt side. Like, how does it impact me? How does it impact my business? But you have to think about how it's impacting the customer side, because on the customer side, what's happening is they turn around and go, oh, Bryan was going to fuck me that hard. If this guy's going to come in 30 or 50 or 70, $80,000 under what everybody else was in, Bryan was going to fuck me that hard. Well, that means anytime I do this sort of work, I shouldn't expect Bryan's price. I should expect Yahoo's price over here, who gave it super low. And it's not even exactly. Yeah. It's not even like, it's not like they did the damage to the one job. It's, you've done damage going forward, because now everyone goes, well, that means everybody else is just way overcharging.
Yep.
And I'll tell you what really sucks, especially on the low end of the spectrum, is really what that guy did is he didn't charge mobilization. He's not putting any money away for his equipment depreciation. He's not accounting for any possible contingencies that might happen on the job. And so we just went up on a septic bid against some of these companies. Again, kind of dropping back to the smaller scale. And the way those guys approach this is they're going to go in there and they're going to give the customer a rate. And Rick and we're the kind of guys that if we give you a bid and we tell you it's going to cost X amount to build it, unless there's some act of God that comes through, we're going to tell you a bid price and it's going to be that price. And if we got to bring in 400 extra ton of stone because we fucked up, that's our fuck up, and we're going to eat it because we bid the job at this. Now, there's circumstances, of course, where you have to bid things and say kind of this is up to this certain amount because there's unknowns, and you be forward with the customer. But this septic job is not one of those. And what happened is other septic company comes in and they give a quote that's $13,000 less than us on a septic. It was a pressurized field system. They were $13,000 lower. And we start going through, like, how could they have gotten there? What they did is they told the homeowner they were going to put in a gravity feed system, knowing full well that once they got them under contract, they were going to go shoot the elevations and go, turns out it's a pressurized system. And so it's like, what are you doing? You're giving the industry a bad name. You're hurting all of us other contractors in the business. And it's so you can make a buck on one job. And again, you're not even covering your ass. So the first thing that goes wrong, you're the guy that goes belly up, and we all have to deal with the fallout of that. So how do we fix that? There's my big question. How do we fix that in our industry?
I really, truly believe that someone needs to do it. And there's good incentives there right now. Like, people are waking up. It's kind of like what's going on with, and I don't know anybody's political affiliation, but I'm going to just talk about something that has kind of to do with what's going on right now. Sure. I just watched a thing on the Wall Street Journal, right? I'm the guy that reads both sides. I don't
Yeah.
just do left. I don't just do right.
You've got to be healthy, man. You
I
got
go
to
to
see
both
both
sides of the
sides.
bullshit, and then I go, okay, this is actually what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's sad you got to do
I'm
that
with
now.
you. Yep.
So, anyways, they were talking about, and Wall Street Journal is mostly a left side of the fence newspaper. Well, they did an article today calling themselves out. I got to give them props for that. And they said, hey, most of these left leaning states and left leaning cities are finding all this bullshit that they've just passed for the past 10 years of like, hey, we're going to allow bums to live on the street. We're going to allow meth needles. We're going to legalize every drug on the planet, all this shit.
It's
They're
not
like,
working.
hey, we need to get some cops, dude. Like,
Yeah.
for real. Like, so we're gonna hire cops and we're gonna allow the cops
Hey,
to do their
Bob,
job.
we may have fucked up here.
Yeah, we're gonna let the cops do their job again. And so people are waking up. So, and they're saying that they're like, the voter base is going, dude, do something about this shit, or we're gonna vote you out. And it's kind of the same thing that we got to look at with the industry. You've got a very old guard of people that run this shit. Like, and I know a lot of them don't. I got taught by them. You did too, but they're very stuck in a very old way of thinking too, though.
100%.
And their way of thinking is, hey, I got to keep my guys busy at all costs, or they're going to go down the road and work for somebody else. That's fine. Let them go down the fucking road and work for somebody else. If you're that slow, you need to just look yourself in the fucking mirror and be like, hey, I can't pay you. So I'm going to pay you this week and next week. And I'm going to pay your vacation or whatever you got, whatever your program is, and say, I'm slow. But I'm not going to fuck the guys down the street because I'm slow and low bid a fucking job. And that's what we need to do as business owners, as leaders of this industry, is go, or pick up the phone and call somebody and go, hey, dude, I'm kind of slow. Do you need some help hauling off dirt on a job? I'll throw an excavator and an operator out there. Here's my rate. Does that work for you? Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll help you out. There's guys that are fucking slammed right now. There's guys that are slow. It's just the way it goes. So if somebody's slammed, pick up the phone, call somebody. I have the phone number for most of the guys around in town. I can pick up the phone and call them. Yeah, some of them we ain't tight like that, but I can still call them and say, hey, I've got some guys freed up. Do you need some help? Yeah. And I'll I will run their gear if they need me to, throw my operators in there and, just charge them literally what they cost. It's working together is going to solve this problem. Because if we let the developers, the industry itself make the decision for us, we're not going to like the answer. And because it's going to be is more money for them and less money for us. And I don't mean to put it like us versus them thing here, but all you're doing is
you're exactly right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, somehow the dirt industry has kind of become the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah.
And we are all beholden to the GCs. We're all beholden to the customer that's price shopping. And so we've got that problem that we're contending with right now. And then you really hit it on the head too. The flip side is within our industry, within our own ranks, we're playing a game of hungry hippos, if you think about it. Like out in the middle, there's only this pool of so many really qualified operators out there. Yeah. And so once you gobble them all up and you have them, you don't want to let them go because there's not really anyone out there in the middle to replace them with, because everyone else is hoarding all of their little pebbles or whatever the fuck those hippos ate. I don't even know what it was. So no one wants to let their operators go. But if we could kind of get back to this system of having a free flowing workforce, that's one solution. Or I'm a big fan of what you said. I don't know why everyone in this industry is so backstabby and just wanting to screw over the other guy. I'm the same way. Rick and I have a number of contractors that we've become pretty good friends with that we absolutely dogpile on jobs together, and we're all trying to help each other out. And our concrete guys, when they get a job, they drag us along. When we get a job, we drag the concrete guys along. And if we got we got a company that we've become really good friends with that does any seawalls or docks or anything. And boy, the second we need any of that work, we're dragging them into the mix, and they're doing the same with us. So really, that's the way the industry should operate. But like you said, you've got this old guard that's still hanging on, and they're not quite ready to give up yet. And by God, they're not going to play nice. It's every man for himself.
I'm I'm a couple years younger than you, but I'm not much. And you and me are like on the beginning stages of millennial, but
Yeah.
really
Yep.
we're kind of like this hybrid. And I try to explain it
Yep.
to people. They call us the forgotten generation because we're like the end of Gen X or whatever the one before us. What one was
Yep.
before us? Is it
I
Gen
don't
X?
remember which one it
Which one?
is.
Whatever it is. We're kind of like those guys, but we're kind of like millennial. Like we grew up, we played outside with the street lights, got our ass beat, in school still, and Dare was
But also
still
had a
around.
laptop.
Yeah, yeah, it was like really odd. And we also played games that had derogatory names, but
Yeah, 100%.
and at least we knew what bathroom to use. But
Yes.
I'm not political. I don't do it on my show. I just,
I'm with you, man. I'm
it's
with
just,
you.
it sucks, man. It's sad that you got to say that nowadays, but it's true. I want people to realize though that like I understand where the old guard does come from on it. I do, and it's noble for what they want to do. But I don't think they're seeing the reality of what's going on nowadays. Like guys now, it is so hard to get guys to come to work. So you get them to work, and then they're like, "Hey, I need like 500 million hours of work," and you're like, "I don't have that much work for you." It's like I can get you, I can get you 50 hours a week. 10 hours overtime over a week, and it's like, well, I want to work Saturday, and it's like, listen, dude, like we're not that behind. We're not behind right now. I'm not going to just pour all this OT in right now because the cost of fuel's through the roof, and dude, labor's gone through the roof. I mean, the price of an operator's. I wish I was operating right now. Won't lie.
And I will say this: as a business owner, it sucks. But the flip side is that needed to happen. Like wages were severely lagging behind in our
Hell yeah.
industry,
No,
and
I
so as
agree
much
with
as
you.
it hurts us, I am happy that it's come up.
I will say, man, I'm very happy, and I'm willing to pay a guy now, but it's like crazy how much more I have to pay a guy and it's sad. I'm doing something you probably have done yourself. I'll look at a guy, I watch him run a piece of equipment, he makes mistakes, and I'm still paying him more than when I was running a GPS motor grader as a finish operator. And I'm like,
Right.
I would dance circles around you 5 years ago. Like, and it's true though. I would have. And it's just like, and I make $6 less an hour than you did.
Yeah.
And you're bitching at me that you need a raise. Now, I will say this: gas was not $4 a fucking gallon. A house wasn't almost $1 million. So I get it. Yes, the economy has changed, but it's crazy how fast it happened because this used to take 20, 30 years to happen. And now it's happening in 5 years. That's insane. And that's why we're having
Since
such a
COVID.
problem.
I mean,
Yeah,
really,
that's why we're having
let's
such a
nail it
problem.
down. It's been within the last 3 years that everything has really skyrocketed, and I've kind of got this theory about why. I don't know how it's been down there, but up here we've had a really, really weird spring, and it's been like unsettlingly quiet for all trades. We've been talking to all our trades buddies, and it's all this way. And I really think one of the biggest reasons for that is, inflation happened, but everyone still had their pocketbooks full of COVID money for a while. And I feel like within the last like 8 to 12 months, everyone's COVID money started running out. And then they started paying attention to just how much they were paying for gas and just how much they were paying for toilet paper. And they were like, holy shit, we got to dial back. And so I feel like that's kind of culminating right now at the same time that we're coming into an election year and everyone's going, we got to pump the brakes on everything until we kind of figure out where we're at financially.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's pathetic that it's still this high. I mean, normally they raise rates, dude, and like I remember the last time they raised rates was like, what was it? 2015. It was like 2015, and I remember we got kind of slow there for like a couple months, and we laid off some guys, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, I've never seen these kind of layoffs before." I was like, "Bro, you weren't around like 08, dude. I wasn't either, but I knew tons of people that were."
Yeah.
And
it was ugly.
Dude, whole companies went out of business like days. Caterpillar
and not
had
a couple. It was a lot.
Yeah. Caterpillar's yard in Irving. I came home on leave. I was in the Army. I was a government employee at the time. I was smart. Was a government employee.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, I could barely afford the full box of
Sure.
of Easy Mac though, because I was so far.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
broke. I was broke
But
private.
at least it was a steady almost box of Easy Mac because
Mhm.
Uncle Sam's teat is reliable. It just
It wa
doesn't produce.
Yep, yep. So we had I came home on leave, and I don't know if you've ever been to the big Holt Yard in Irving, the one on.
No, I haven't in Irving. No.
Okay, so it's like their biggest yard up here, dude. That thing was plumb full of
No
everybody's
shit.
gear. Like it had, how everybody
Wow.
wraps their stuff, and even back then, people
Mm-hmm.
did. Like you drove by, and it was just company after company after company, just gear sitting there,
Wow.
and it was like, how many dudes? Yeah, I couldn't imagine sitting in a bankruptcy court. I mean, it'd probably be like just lined up out the door, just insane. It was sad.
I will say, as much as we've kind of touched on all of the negatives and the frustrations of the industry, the flip side is I do feel like we're right on the cusp of the next evolution of our industry because, we all know our industry is 20 years behind when it comes to anything related to technology. I mean, good God, how long did it take for us to implement GPS? And GPS has been around since the 80s. I mean,
Yeah,
so now we're really starting, like, technology's here and it's starting to really root in. And when I went to Con Expo this past year, one of the things that stuck out to me was just there is technology all over the place. You got autonomous machines running all over the place. You've got Cat's Command Center. There's like 6 other companies that are doing the same thing that Cat's doing with their Cat Command Center, where you can remote operate equipment that's all the way across on the other side of the world. You've got, man, drone technology that's being used to stabilize crane loads so they can do picks in higher wind gusts. I mean, it's just like, holy shit, this is incredible. And so as a result, we've got this dwindling workforce. Like you said, nobody really wants to come to work. And I'm going to go against the grain of our industry here. And I'm going to say that's not that kids don't want to work. It's that kids don't want to go stand in the hot sun and shovel all day long. And I'll
right.
be honest with you, I don't blame them. Like, I get the pride aspect. I have a lot of pride in the hard path that I have traveled to get where I am. And I am proud of the fact that I broke my back for this industry to earn my stripes. And I know you feel the same way, and everybody else does in this industry. But you got to understand that's because we're in this industry where we've got it in our blood, and we know how that's the industry, and that's how it operates. But this new blood coming in, they're coming in fresh, and they haven't done shovel work, and they haven't done all of these other physical tasks. And to be honest with you, they don't want to. This is the tech generation, and they want to come into a cab that's got all the bells and whistles and stuff. And the cool thing is as the industry starts to kind of get past, as that changing of the old guard takes place, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have these kids come in, and yeah, they're going to suck ass when it comes to like roughing anything in by hand. But the flip side is I can put you in a GPS machine or a laser control, or I can show you how to do infield design, something that an old guy is just going to not have a clue on how to do. And these kids are going to pick it up like nothing. And that's where I guess we as an industry have kind of the onus is on us to recognize the talents that are coming into the industry and then work those talents into our advantage as business owners. And that's what I think we're just totally failing at currently in its current state.
The only thing I think that's going to be a problem for the autonomous route is the unions. They're going to fight them.
So
They're going to fight them tooth and
they
nail. I think.
will. It's interesting. I interviewed an autonomous company here just last week, and one of the things I always ask them, I don't ever skirt around the issue. I always
Yeah.
thought, the industry wants to know, is this going to take our jobs? And he flat out said, he's like, no. I said I didn't think so, but explain it in your terms. And he goes, no. He goes, there's always going to be operators in the seat. He said, autonomous machines are good for long duration projects with repetitive tasks. If you're doing a dam project where you're just hauling material thousands and thousands and thousands of times over the course of 9 months to a year, great job for autonomous. If you're doing compaction over and over and over in the same area, great job for autonomy. But the second you start doing pipe work, or you start doing finish grade work, or anything where you need visual input, and then you need to you need to put out a certain function in real time, it doesn't work with autonomous machines, because everyone kind of forgets You don't just go point an autonomous machine in a dirt pile and say, move it over there. Like, you've got to program that thing. And that takes time. Implementation of this equipment takes, I don't know, I didn't ask him, but I guarantee you it's at least a couple weeks, if not a month, just to implement the technology before it actually starts running. And so on these shorter duration projects, you'll never see it.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of a lot of people don't realize is they're like, oh my God, it's going to take our jobs. I'm like, okay, well, then why is there still farmers? And they got real quiet.
100%.
And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, they've had autonomous combines for like 10 years now. Like, and guys are still sitting in them. Like, they don't do anything, but they sit in there and they make sure the grain buggy shows up so they can unload it. But besides that, that's it, dude. Like, I got buddies that work in Oklahoma doing that, and they don't do anything all day. They just sit in the damn cab in the AC and half the time take a nap.
Monitoring yield, making sure nothing's breaking, making sure it's running like it's supposed to. And that's it. Jobs aren't going to get lost. They're just going to change and morph into the new norm. And that's what it's going to be.
I will say that I'm excited to see it happen because there are jobs that, like, as a business owner, and I don't mean to say it like this, there's some jobs you paying a guy to do, and it's like, dude, I only need you to do this a couple hours a day, but I'm keeping you out on a guy on a roller. Who the hell rolls all day? Nobody.
Yeah.
Who runs a water truck all day? Nobody. I mean, it's just like,
that's it.
Unless you're in Arizona in the desert, you're not running a water truck all day. It's just not happening.
Right.
So it's like, it's one of those things, like, I can see those going autonomous pretty quick, like rollers, water trucks, like support equipment that might happen, but your excavators, your dozers, your blades, track loaders, like critical gear, you're still going to have a guy in the cab. I guarantee it. It's
well, the funny thing too, is when you really break down, like, who's bitching the loudest about their jobs being taken, it's that old guard. And it's like, dude, the average age in our industry is 57. So like almost half of our industry is going to retire within the next 10 years. Mm-hmm. And so these are the guys that are bitching about their jobs being taken. Dude, you're out the door. Like, this isn't your problem. And what's happening is our generation's left sitting here with nobody in the seats anymore. And that's why I'm going, sign me up. Like, I would take, I could absolutely see this morphing into, instead of having 4 operators in haul trucks, you got 1 operator. First of all, because you don't have the manpower. But secondly, now we got one of these command centers where it's mostly autonomous. And so I can have 1 operator monitoring 4 to 6 haul trucks. And if they got to jump in and manually take control occasionally, they can do that. But now you got 1 individual doing the job of what used to be 6 individuals. And we didn't eliminate those jobs. They literally evaporated because half of our workforce just retired out, and we're not getting the incoming blood to replace them. So, technology is more of a stopgap. It's more of filling the void that's being left behind by the fact that we don't have the workforce we used to.
You got to think, too, the mentality is different, too.
100%.
This generation is kind of like our grandparents.
Yes.
They're hard. Like, everybody's like, oh, man, these kids now, they don't get anything. I'm like, no, they got a chip on their shoulder. I'm like, I don't really blame them, man. Like, They got told their whole life, oh, you got it made now. You got the computer. You got, AC. You got all this. We didn't have all this crap when I was a kid. I think a lot of them are just tired of hearing it. And they really do. They hate the boomers, dude. Like, I can't believe how much these kids, like, I talk to them now and they're like, I hate the baby boomer generation. I'm like, why? And they're like, they had a silver spoon. And I'm like, not all of them. I got a few that work with me. They didn't have a silver spoon. And that's a misconception, but it's just like, you do hear that a lot from the next generation of guys. They're just like, I don't like them. I'm like, well, what do you think about us? They're like, you guys are kind of like them, but you guys at least kind of understand where we're coming from. We're like, yeah, we do. I mean, we're just not as extreme as y'all are about it. And so
the older I get, the more I recognize the kind of generational separation. And it is funny because every generation bitches about the next one down. And every new generation looks back at the old generation and goes, dude, you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about because you're so outdated.
Yeah. No, it's true, though. I mean, it's just because I don't keep up on anything anymore. Like, my old lady's a teacher. So, like, she'll tell me about the new style at school. Like, she'll say a word and I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And she's like,
yeah.
Oh, well, that's
like Riz.
Like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, they got something now. It's like it's supposed to mean like drifting. And I'm like, why don't you just say fucking drifting? And they're like,
Yeah.
well, it's the cool thing to say. I'm like, bro, that's like literally a part on a tire. Like, are you fucking serious? Like,
Yeah.
I knew I was getting old. So in the army, right? Like, army's
Mm-hmm.
even worse than civilian world, right? So at 25, you're like 50 in the army. Like, they're like, oh, you're a
No,
freaking old
nice.
guy. Right. Right. So like we get some new private. Is right before I was getting out. We get some. I'm going to finish this up. I know you got to get off here, and
No, you're good.
we get these get these two privates come in. They're like, "Man, that was so ratchet." And I was like, "You need a ratchet? I'll go get you one." They're like, "No, Sergeant, we don't need
Yeah.
a ratchet." I'm like, "What the hell is a ratchet, dude?" Like, that's what I knew. I was like, "I'm not. We're not in the same generation. I don't know."
Dude, I was reading a deal. I was reading a deal the other night. There was this little like comic that had all of this slang, like the new slang worked into it. And it's like talking about drip, riz, and I can't even remember. And I'm like I felt like a boomer. I just glaze over and I'm like, what the fuck did you just say? None of those are words. I'm out.
I will
Okay,
say
I'm
one
old.
thing, and this is for all of us guys that out listen to the show because I do check my demographics on Spotify. So, in my age group. So I know most of the listeners are our age. So I'm going to say this. We would totally fuck those kids up today, though.
100%.
Fuck their asses up. These kids don't know how to fight now. I'm going to say that. I don't
bitches.
care. Motherfucker, our generation fought.
We're on our way to being boomers.
Came back. And we didn't lose.
I will say this too. I'm
going
to go full boomer. I'm going full boomer. We smoke them with a shovel every freaking time. You put a young kid in the trench, and Rick and I will out shovel the fuck out of those kids. It's like, come on, you're the young one.
And I will outload a fucking truck and fucking load it faster than you.
100%.
Any day of the week, bro.
Now,
dude,
you put GPS on that machine with some of the new fancy shit, and okay, give me 30 minutes to figure out which button to push. Those kids are going to take off. But by God, I'll load that truck faster than you, fucker.
Hey, so yesterday, I'll tell you a quick story about not GPS and having GPS. So I'm getting bad about it because we have them in our machines, and we got a new motor. We got some new machines in that are being loaned to us, and I jump in the machine, and it's old 13, like something I learned in an old 13 772G motor grader, John Deere.
No shit.
And I'm like, oh hell yeah, pre-joystick. All right, let's go back, baby. All right.
So you got the full-on piano keys rocking?
Yeah, but it's the one that's like right here. It's not the one that's up by the steering wheel. It's the one.
Yeah, so it's still nice and ergonomic. Yeah.
It's ergonomic one. And so Will's like, hey, you think you can still run that without GPS? I said, dude, I don't even use GPS that much. He's like, you got it on all the time. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't mean I'm clicking the autos. I just use it as a reference.
Right. You're just looking at it.
Yeah. And so there was a pile on this pad that we had to stockpile. And he's like, hey, you think you can get all that off and get it close? I'm like, yeah, I'll get it within like 2/10, I think. He's like, yeah, right. And so I slick it all off. I get it all off. He goes over, starts shooting it with the GPS, and he starts painting. And it's 0.2, 0.25, 0.2, 0.25. He's like, how the hell did you do that? I was like, I don't know. Just can look
old
at
school
it.
Skill, baby.
He's like, how can you look at that? I'm like, it's not hard, man. It's not hard. I don't know.
Dude, that was the pinnacle of my career was when I hired in at Dan's. They stuck me on a D6, and I was supposed to build this pad out of millions that they were going to set a crusher plant on. And he's like, my foreman comes over, dude, this is still when I'm green to like civil construction. I came from a small residential company. I cut my teeth. I was a good operator, but I didn't know jack shit about the civil side. So he's like, build this pad. And I'm like, for what? And he's like, just build a pad. And I'm like, okay. And dude, they start slamming me with trucks. So we had 3 mills running on the job that I was on. And every single one of those fucking trucks was coming at me. And it was only about a half-mile haul from where they were milling. So, I mean, it was just bam, 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 all day long. And so I was like, okay, here we go. So I start building this pad out. After a day and a half, I've got this pad built out, and I want to say it was like probably 200 yards square. So 200 yards by 200 yards. And it was about a 6-foot drop from one end to the other that I was starting with the initial grade. Grader came down with GPS to check to see how level it was. He drives around, drops his blade a handful of spots, comes over, and he goes, "Do you have anyone shooting grade for you?" I said, "No, why?" He goes, "Dude, you're within a tenth across that entire pad."
Fuck yeah, dude.
That's
Hell
all
yeah.
skill, baby. It's all on that ass level.
Hey, yeah, amen, brother. Best level in the world is your fucking ass, dude.
That's
I don't care what
it.
anybody says.
That's it.
That level meter in the cab and your ass ain't ever gonna lie to you, man. That bubble.
That's it. Yep, 100%.
You can literally grade a pad with just the level gauge in the cab, and nobody understands that. I'm like, dude, if you actually look up at that thing, you can do it. And they're like, really? I'm like, think about
And
it.
to be totally honest, you only need it when you're starting your, at least for me, I only need it for that initial level because my mind will kind of fuck with me sometimes. And so if I can get up on a level spot that I know is level and just sit there for just a second, I'm like, okay, we're good. I got it. The rest of the day I'll be level.
I literally need one spot on the job is on grade. If you're wanting me
That's
to build
it.
a pad, that's all I need.
Yep.
And I can do, or whether I'm doing lifts or anything, like, you know how you're building up shit over years, you got to do it even lifts all the way across.
Yep.
Same shit. It's like you got off roads running, leave a windrow up on the left, they dump, fucking keep going, baby. And
Yep.
you know, I could do it. I used to do it in an 8 all the time, and it's like an 8, you can't see shit. You're just seeing the bottom of your fucking
It's
blade.
all feel.
It's all feel. It's all hydraulic. So anybody that's never run 8s, 9s, 10s, I'm gonna tell you, you can't see shit. So don't let anybody tell you can, unless you got like that the scraper blade on. That's like the only time you can see. But if you're running like a real true production blade, you ain't gonna see shit.
Even those D6Rs, dude. The T's I'm sorry, not the T's. The ends. The ends were phenomenal.
Yeah,
But you get in those R's, you couldn't see jack shit. Like the corners of the blades were down below the track, and so it's just like, all right, we're gonna send it and see what happens.
And like, especially down here, you know as well. I don't know if you ever worked on the dirt side when you were down there, but like in the rock side, they didn't have to run them. But I noticed Ranger would run wide tracks on their for their moisture conditioning crews, but the rock crews they were running the skinny tracks because it's rock. But the dude, when you run the T's with the wide tracks, like for moisture conditioning, because you're running the LGPs, you can't see shit. You can't see the bottom of that blade. It's all just
that's all we run up here in Michigan. That was a weird thing to get used to because down south it was all skinny track. Up here, you don't hardly see them with a narrow track. It's all LGPs or at least wide track.
Yeah, like everybody here runs LGP or WLTs. I mean, on the deers, and then the cats. Well, you know, cat now they don't have any acronyms anymore. It's just I got a 6.
Right. Yeah.
I got an XE. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Okay. You got an XE. That's
Cat
cool.
fucked everybody up with that rename system. Like, yeah, I run a D3. Which one?
Are we talking
new one or old one?
Are we talking old logo or new logo? What are we talking?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I started asking guys that when
a D6 really, or is it a D3 really?
Yeah, like I like it when guys are like, "Yeah, I ran a 6." I'm like, "Oh, hold on a second. What are we talking? OG 6? Or are we talking like New Jack 6?" And they're like,
"Exactly.
What's OG 6?"
Everything's fucked up now.
I'm like, an OG 6 will dance circles around a new G6. So like,
yeah.
I said G6.
It's fun, man. There's the generational gap. We just summed it up in a nutshell. If you don't know what a D6 is, you're in the new generation.
If you don't know what D6T is, man, you can't sell yourself a dozer operator because that is the dozer operator's dozer. That is a dozer operator's dozer.
That was a mean machine. When that fucker came out, I could not believe how well it pushed.
D8T and D6T were the two best dozers Caterpillar ever made. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
And a 140H. I was a
huge fan of the T series.
I was an H guy. I love the H blades. If you got a 140H lying around, dude, send it my way. I'll run the hell out of that thing. I love them old 140Hs.
Dude, good luck finding them because that's all the old school guys in the industry. They all want those H's. You can't hardly find them.
There's some companies around here still running them. They put GPS on them, but you look in the cab, it ain't a young guy running it. It's always usually an older guy because they don't want to run.
And every single time you ask them, oh yeah, this will run circles around the new ones. I believe you after watching.
Well, and the thing is, the maintenance on them is like half the cost because it ain't got all the computers in it. You know, it's still the old school stuff. You know.
Yeah.
If you got some issue with injectors, you change the injector. It ain't the injector harness sensor 5
right.
on
It's some wire all the way up in the right tire that's causing it not to run. What?
So our Komatsu excavator last like 2 weeks ago, I went and got the service done on it, and mechanic came out. The guy I use, he comes out and did my service on it, and like the next day, I go and fire it up. I check all the fluids, everything's good. I fire it up, and all of a sudden, it's like losing power. Like as soon as I start loading trucks, and then a little light comes on, and I'm like, "What the hell is going on?" And so I shut it down and I call him and I said, "Hey, I got some code, dude." And he's like, "Hey, hold these 2 buttons." I don't remember what he told me to hold. I hold these 2 buttons and the code screen comes up. He's like, "Read me the code." I read him the code and he's like, "I'll be right there." I'm like, "Well, what do you need to do?" He's like, "I'll be right there." He literally had to come there and tighten 2 nuts that were on this something that held the fuel filter, but it was a special. No, I'm not making this up. You have to have a special wrench to do this. I didn't know this.
What
so I'm
the
thinking,
fuck?
yeah,
And
I'm
it throws
thinking,
a code because 2 bolts are loose.
yeah. So he goes up there, tightens them up, and the light turns off. But I was losing power, dude. Like I couldn't get a full heaping bucket. Like I couldn't get a heaping bucket. I could get a regular bucket, but I couldn't get a heaping. Yeah. That extra 4
I will
yards.
say, for all the advantages of technology, there will always be drawbacks.
It'll limp you. It'll screw you real quick.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Brother, it has been an absolute freaking pleasure having you on. I don't want to get you in trouble with your old lady, man. I know you're going out of town.
Dude, I appreciate you having me on. And if it wasn't for the old lady, I could sit here and chat for a whole other hour. But I made a promise.
No, I don't want you getting jammed up. So,
no, Bryan, thanks for having me on. This has been great.
Bryan, how can we reach you, bro?
So look it up on YouTube, Diesel and Iron. That's the primary platform. And then over on Instagram, you can check us out. I'm not super active on Instagram for Diesel and Iron, but our podcast is called Sweat and Grime. And our Sweat and Grime account is where we're pretty active. And it's generally Tot or myself will be on that one and chat with you. And then if you look up Equipment World on YouTube, that's where you're going to find The Dirt. That's the show I host there. And that's going to be just, it's almost kind of more a news informational type show. So if you're wanting to learn more about the dirt industry, Diesel and Iron's your platform. If you're wanting a little more kind of industry related topics and news, that's where the dirt's going to come in.
And by the way, guys, if you want to laugh your ass off and learn some shit at the same time, definitely check out the Sweat and Grime podcast. This shit is fucking hilarious. I literally die every time I listen to their show.
We have a good time with that one. That's
freaking hilarious,
that's a blast,
dude.
We need to get you up here sometime and do it live.
I know. I'm definitely got to do that. I got like 3 shows to get on. I got to get up there with you. I got to get up there with Davini on Dirty and Driven, and Colt wants me to come back over and get on the show with him. So,
hell yeah,
Colt
and they're all good podcasts. Go check them all out.
Oh, dude, I'll tell you. You know, podcasting. I've made some freaking badass friends, dude. Like seriously, I didn't think. You know, you think you're gonna start being a podcaster. You're like, oh yeah, I'll probably meet some people. Dude, every guy I've met that does it, man, they're solid, man. Especially because it's our industry. I mean, if they're in our industry, especially that, even you click even more because not just podcasting, but what you actually do. But
yeah,
it's pretty badass, man. And like, I really enjoy it. And you know, I listened to y'all's show for years before I started podcasting. I watched your YouTube channel and you know, dude, you taught me some stuff over the years. You know, and
that's scary.
I'm not afraid to admit it. You know,
I don't know what I was teaching you, but by God, we probably ought to decompress on that one. You know, but no, thanks, man. Honestly, thanks for having me on the show. This has been a blast, and we'll absolutely do this again.
Yes, for sure. So, guys, if you could leave us our 5 stars on Spotify and like, rate, and review on Apple. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. And I just hit my mic. And if
it was just a slight tap of the eardrum, it's fine.
And we're still not at 500 freaking followers on Instagram. So I don't care if you guys make fake accounts or what. I'm sending you a hat, and then at 1,000, I'm sending a hoodie, a hat, and a custom sticker. So if you guys will help me out on this Instagram. So we do have TikTok. Make sure you check that out. You'll be able to watch these reels of me and Bryan talking shit and laughing. So guys, hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you next time. Stay classy as always. I'm out. See you guys.